Welcome in, guys. We are live. John Zannis sitting at home. Taylor Kyles and Mike Kadlick doing the Lord's work, covering the Patriots. And again, we can make our jokes, but nobody likes what's going on here. And I'm sure, and there's a lot of people that want a high draft pick next year, and that's the goal. But you really want to see something a little bit better and a little bit more competitive. And right now, you're not getting this out of the Patriots. They fall to the Dolphins, and this was about as bad a football game on every side you could possibly watch, with the really handicapped offenses, the Patriots being what they are, the Dolphins without their starting quarterback, a ton of penalties, sloppy plays, mistakes, just a gross football game start to finish, but one that the Patriots were amazingly in a position to win. We'd be having a slightly different conversation here, but instead, here's where we're at. We're going to talk about a little bit of everything. Can't not talk about Jacoby Brissett and the passing offense. We're going to talk about the play calling. Going to talk about what's going on with all the penalties, because to me, that's the biggest story today, is how sloppy and undisciplined this team looks, and how odd it is to me that it's going backwards. But first off, because I know a lot of people in the chat, a lot of people on Twitter have probably been lighting you guys up over the touchdown that wasn't a touchdown at the end of the game. Everyone here, I'm guessing, who's watching the show watched the game. Jalen Polk near the end of the game looks like he came down with a touchdown. On replay, he gets 1 foot down, and a second foot, his toe comes down, and everyone just naturally assumes, unless you are a student of the NFL rule book, naturally assume, I got his toe down, it's a touchdown. Not the case. His heel comes down out of bounds. It turns out that's the rule, and it's not a touchdown. It was overturned instantly. Yet there's a lot of people still kind of upset about this. You guys, your take on that final play here, because I think this one's actually fairly easy to put to rest, but I just wanted to kind of address it before we get into the rest of what we saw.
You want to start?
Yeah, it wasn't a touchdown. Stop complaining. It's that easy. We talked about the rule before we came on. The rule is pretty clear. Alex Barth was the one. Shout out him who was able to.
I'll put it up while you're talking.
John's going to put it up on screen as well. But the way that his foot was coming down, the fact that his heel landed out of bounds as well makes him out of bounds. It's not like a toe drag where his toe is the last thing that goes in. It's the toe and then his foot as basically one piece comes out of bounds. It's not a touchdown. Again, me and Taylor were sitting up in the press box, and I was like, oh, they're going to have to go to the booth, look at overturn this. And by the time I finished my conversation, the ref was already coming out to announce that it wasn't a touchdown. Now, if you don't know the rules, I can understand why you would assume that he got his second toe in, because, it obviously comes down. And if you can't see me, but I'm literally putting my toe on the ground here talking next to Taylor. But yeah, it's not a touchdown. And that shouldn't really even be the story of the game. There are too many mistakes, too many penalties. I know we're going to get into all of it, but long story short, there's really no reason to complain. It's one of those things where that was the rule. He was out of bounds. You had another chance and you weren't able to get it done.
And I think it's because this comes off the back of last week, where I think you had a much more fair case that Jalen Polk should have had an even tougher catch last week against the 49ers when he was on the sideline, because it looked like he actually did get another part of his body down. I think that's part of why people are so frustrated, because now it seems like back-to-back weeks where it's in the situation. You also had Jalen Polk and Demario Douglas in the locker room saying they thought it was a touchdown, which, I don't care.
Sorry, guys.
Like, who wasn't? Jacoby Brissett's comment on it, honestly, I thought was much better, because you shouldn't put the game in the referee's hands. If you want to talk about one play that made the game, why don't we talk about Joey Sly missing a 33-yard field goal? I don't want to dump on him either, because the point of this is it doesn't come down to one play. But if you want to be realistic, that's a play that should have been made. Yep. And if it had been, obviously the game situation goes out differently. But if you have 3 more points on the board, you don't even need a touchdown. So I don't really care that Jalen Polk didn't get his foot down. He's a rookie. He's going to learn all that. Jacoby Brissett probably could have thrown a better ball, although I thought it was the best anticipation I've probably seen from him this season. Yep. But yeah, Polk was out of bounds. It's really as simple as that. I don't care who you decide to put the blame on. That play is far from the reason they lost, especially considering on the last offensive drive, or second to last, you had Hunter Henry, just named a captain, got flagged twice. And we're talking about all 3 phases. You have all these penalties, or special teams, too many men on the field, 2 delay of game penalties. The offense gets flagged. Keon White, Gerard Mayo was asked about it, got flagged twice on the same drive, gave the Miami Dolphins 15 yards each.
And an egregious roughing the passer. Yeah. Helmet to helmet, right to Henley's head. And I saw people on Twitter complaining that wasn't a roughing the passer. Are you kidding me?
That's what we do.
That was insane. I know it's what we do, but it's like, I know it's fans and it's biased, but no, the penalties awful. And you mentioned how one play can sort of make the game, right? If you put it into the referee's hands, it's the call and poke. If you put it in the player's hands, it's the slime miss. And if you put it in the coach's hands, it's the plenty of opportunities for Alex Van Pelt to run the damn football and get a first down and keep the chains moving. Instead, he backs off. He passes, he runs shotgun when Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson are going for 7 yards a pop. So just bad stuff all around, bad football. And it does not start and end with this Jalen Polk play in the end zone.
And it doesn't. And I think let's move on to the bigger, better, badder stuff here. I think there's two big stories that continue to kind of follow this team right now. And I don't want to drag our very good friend Evan Lazar, who earlier in the week kind of got himself in a little bit of hot water for kind of saying what people are feeling. But it got, it snowballed and took on a life of its own, which is, do I have the, I don't have it. I don't have the graphic for it, but anyway, there it is, the teetering on the mutiny. And that's not what Evan wasn't really reporting it. Evan was basically saying there's a bit of frustration here because the offense is so out of sync and so bad right now, and it's very conservative. And there's receivers who are getting frustrated that they're not getting the ball. The Patriots aren't pressing it downfield. It's tough. It's tough for everybody right now. And you factor in the injuries and this and that, and the defense is getting frustrated as well. Everybody's frustrated with everything and with everybody, and kind of threw it out there. But it kind of paints a picture of what's going on behind the scenes with the team and whether or not, because again, rookie coach, you're looking at two things. Does he have the attention of the people in the locker room? And it still seems like he does based on what the players, or at least the players who are allowed to speak to us, are saying to us. And again, that's might be strategic in terms of who is doing the talking there. But number two, it's what type of team is it? And so it's so bizarre to me and night and day what we saw week one, which I think really messed up everybody's head with this team, which was, as we put it back then, an incredibly clean game where they did what they were supposed to do. They didn't make mistakes. They didn't, they played with discipline. They played with fire, and they won. And it was like, okay, if they can play this brand of football, they might stay in some games, even given injuries or the talent deficiency that they're facing most weeks. And then it's gotten progressive. And then even the Seattle game was a fairly clean game. They made a couple of mistakes, and you still felt pretty good. Yes, they mucked it in that game with 2 or 3 big situational gaffes, but it was mostly 90% clean. And then it's just gotten worse and worse and worse as it's gone on. And this is the type of stuff, guys, with a losing team you tend to see late in a year when everybody's done, and it's a 4-9 headed towards 4-13 campaign, and everyone's checked out. It's weird to see it in weeks 3, 4, and 5. So what's going on right now? How much can you attribute to new personnel coming in there, and how much is it like, these guys, they don't have them ready to play? Because you're seeing it from weird places, from veterans and from less experienced players.
But when it's this bad, it's a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. It's the coaching. It's the play calling offensively. Like, I've tried to give Alex Van Pelt grace because usually, like, an NFL team usually will base a scouting report on 4 games. So for me, I was like, all right, let's get these under the belt. Let's see, like, what patterns start to emerge, all that stuff. Alex Van Pelt in the past couple weeks hasn't really impressed me. And this week, I had it as one of my game keys. You need to run the ball at least 30 times. It's not an arbitrary number necessarily. Statistically, teams tend to win when they get to that number of carries. And it's not just because, we're just establishing the run. It's because if you are able to run that much, you're typically keeping the game close. You're typically controlling the clock and time of possession, which is something that Drake Maye keeps saying that they haven't been able to do. Time of possession has been lopsided pretty much every week, I think, except for week 1. And then on top of that, with Alex Van Pelt specifically, like the 2-minute drill, very frustrating because it's the exact same thing that happened against the Seahawks, where then I gave him a pass because really, Drake Maye said that came down to poor execution, and he was right. They had opportunities to convert. Remember, there was the throw that Hunter Henry wasn't able to make the catch on the sidelines. Like, they had chances. This was a situation where you don't have a very good offensive line. Jacoby Brissett has pressure in his face on 3-step drops. And instead of, I know that Jacoby Brissett said they wanted to go for the double score, and you always want to do that. but like have some awareness. You are not built to go down the field 80 yards or whatever and score. I'm sorry. And I hate when teams get conservative and they don't capitalize on opportunities to score points, but you just ran the ball for an 8-yard gain. Just run the clock out, try to score at halftime. Instead, you put your defense in a bad position, especially after the bad punt from Bryce Behringer, where they were already in scoring territory. Like, that is so frustrating because now we're talking about repeat mistakes, and there's no reason they should not have leaned on the ground game when you average a franchise record in terms of yards per carry.
Two different things, and both extremely important and relevant to today, is with how much success they had running the ball and how clearly it's a strength for them. And that to me, look, I know this is even though it's definitely shifted in the last couple of years, but this is the NFL strategy. Defensively, go ahead and run the ball. I don't care. Teams are giving it to you. And sometimes you play into their hands when you do that, but not when you're the Patriots, because you don't have the other option. It really is the only way that you're going to be able to move the ball down the field, control the time of possession, which I know Mayo talked about today. And really, you have to just kind of do what works for you. And when it's working as well as it's working, there's absolutely no reason to go away from it. So to throw 35 passes and only run the ball 19 times when you're rushing for 7 yards a carry is a strange choice. And we'll get into Alex Van Pelt and what's going on there with, the play calling. But the penalties, I just want to go back to it. Yeah, there's a million all over the place. Disciplined ones, Keon White flagged twice in one drive. The one, I don't know, necessarily there. Hunter Henry, procedural ones, false starts. The amount of holding was insane. Just nonstop. How much
Christian Ellis, the third down flag for Christian Ellis was horrible because that was the reason they couldn't get off the field. And we talk about the run game and how valuable it can be. The Patriots would love to be able to run the ball and have the defense be tired. Like we were seeing Devon Gottschalk get moved off the ball. He is the heart and soul of your defense, especially right now with no Juwan Bentley. When he's getting moved off the ball, you know that the defense is playing way too much. Other than Ellis, it was kind of hard to even be mad at the defense. It's like that was a 95-yard drive. I think the play disparity after that drive was like 70-40 or something like that. Like if you don't run the ball and control the clock and the time of possession, you are putting your defense in such difficult positions.
So I want to give quick thoughts on the penalties and where this team is at discipline-wise, because
that's what I want to ask is, Mike, just fold it into your answer here. I want your opinion on how much that reflects on the coaching staff.
So that's where I was going to go, John, because yes, everyone's blaming the coaching staff right now, and I get it to an extent because it's a trickle-down effect, top-down. They set the standard, they set the rules, they set how we're going to be as a football team, and then the players have to execute it. Obviously, it goes with play calling. It also goes with again, your discipline and how you're gonna react on the field with things like that. Now, each and every week, it was super clean week 1, and then week 2, it gets worse. And week 3 last week, it kind of spirals. And then today, it's out of control. 13 penalties, 14 total, 13 accepted penalties. Each and every week, guys, they're losing leadership on the football field. Juwan Bentley goes down. David Andrews goes down. Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers, not out there today. So, yes, I understand that it comes from coaches, but it also comes from players on the field. And you see Hunter Henry named a captain. He has 2 penalties on that final drive. That's the kind of stuff that just can't happen. So I wonder that, yes, okay, maybe the coaches need to get on these guys more, but the players that are supposed to be setting that standard and, talking in meetings and are standing in front of the room, those guys aren't out there right now. So you're relying on a guy like Nick Leverett in the middle instead of David Andrews. And I know that he wasn't a penalty creator today, but it's someone where you're losing that leadership on both sides of the football.
And Leverett still even did get a couple of penalties himself. I did speak to him after the game, just wanted to get his perspective. He took full accountability because obviously early in that game, almost all of the pressures were pretty squarely on Nick Leverett. There may have been some breakdowns as well, but he acknowledged that he's still getting used to center. And that's where you do feel it, where, I thought that athletically, Nick Leverett probably gives you more than David Andrews, especially considering it seemed like that shoulder probably was bugging him and he wasn't playing up to the standard. But we saw this happen in the preseason, where they got flagged a ton and then they got better and then they got even worse. And they still had a lot of their leaders. So I can't even really put it on that because as the coaching staff, you do set the standard. If you're allowing it to, if it's happening and you're not stopping it, you are allowing it. And this was completely unacceptable. The fact that all 3 phases were penalized in such egregious ways, including your leaders. Keon White is someone who has emerged as a leader. And for him to hit the quarterback in the face, like ridiculous. You have to be smarter than that. The situational awareness, and Mayo kept saying it, the execution, especially in critical situations, was not nearly good enough. Yeah, Jacoby Brissett even on one play where he's got a clean pocket. I understand Nick Leverett kind of got pushed back and his options weren't great, but he ran into pressure. It's like the guys that you expect to be the ones who are making the smart plays are the ones making so many of these silly plays.
But my thing is it didn't start this way, right? Like week 1, they were tied up. The coaches had them in line. And so then I guess what changes coaching wise from week 1 to now?
Well, they've been losing. They've been losing every single week, and it feels like the morale is slowly chipping away. And we've been saying it. Like, is there a mutiny?
So he's having a hard time gathering the guys after losses.
I mean, I do, because I think we're seeing the steady decline in their discipline.
So that's the thing. And again, this is, there's the Brissett May debate has so many layers to it in terms of, I think we've moved the goalposts a lot of times, not you guys, but people in general, about the reasoning for why wins now don't matter, X, Y, and Z. Don't put him behind this line. He's still developing. Brissett still gives you a chance to win. He's going to make a ton of mistakes if he goes out there. Everyone who feels one way or the other is where they are, and it's hard to move, even though I sense you guys are moving a little bit here. And we'll talk about that later. But where you talk about potential mutiny and what Evan was alluding to based on vibe, and again, this isn't a report where it's like players, you can tell, but it's a vibe. You guys are around it all the time. There's a hopelessness when you have this when the futility is this like prevalent. It's this thick. And it's a physical sport, and you're gearing yourself up and you're throwing your body on the line, and you're wondering, like, what am I doing this for? Like, what are we going to get out of this? Like, we can't do it. And I think this is where the part of the conversation we haven't had with May and Brissett, where I think is what you have to look at now, is almost you have to. Not is it right, not is he ready, not is it ideal, this mythical universe where you're going to find the perfect set of circumstances going to come in. It really comes down to this
fall from the sky and into the quarterback meeting. And you are the starting quarterback.
Oh, yeah, I was against this in the beginning because I didn't care who the backup was. It was, throw $8 million at Jacoby, have him fumble around with the idea that May's coming in 3, 4, 5 weeks. But if you're going to continue this on for longer, the question now becomes, did you set your bar too low? And did you need someone a tick or two better than Brissett to be the stopgap at this point? And it wasn't something I cared deeply about to start the season, because I assumed it was a couple of weeks and then the kids coming in. But the longer it drags on, if you're not going to play May, you do have to probably start to consider something else. And it's probably too late to do that. But whether it was your Minshew or your Flacco or your whatever, there's professional quarterbacks out there. And I don't know that.
I still don't, though, John, necessarily think that Jacoby Brissett was the wrong answer at veteran quarterback. Again,
I didn't think so either. But now we're looking at this, and it looks like not only should he not be starting for an NFL team, I don't know that he should be employed by an NFL team. Like he's a break glass in case of absolute emergency guy, but not a person you can comfortably put in there as a plan to be your starter. You know what I mean?
I think though that his familiarity in this system is what makes him so valuable, right? Because when they do turn it over to Drake Maye, Jacoby's, but it's not for Jacoby. It's not. It's his system. He worked with Van Pelt, and so he comes here, and when they do end up turning it over to Drake Maye, Jacoby can at least be a sounding board. He can be someone who goes to the sideline to, where there were a couple plays today where guys were open. Jacoby missed him, but he still knew to put the football there. He just couldn't physically do it. So he can tell Drake Maye, hey, I saw this, you should go there. And maybe Drake Maye can get the football there. And I think, too, with where we're starting to change and kind of, I guess, realize isn't the right word, because it's the changing of the goalpost. I feel like it's now time to turn to Drake Maye because of how the offensive line came together a little bit today, right? There was no pressures from tackles, according to PFF. Nick Leverett was tough up the middle. Mike Onwenu had a couple pressures as well, but they kind of secured it a little bit today on the outside. Vadarian Lowe had a solid game at left tackle, and Demontre Jacobs was pretty good on the right side too. So now that you have that, at least a semblance of an offensive line, and it was Jacoby Brissett that was making the mistakes today and not the offensive line that led to his mistakes, I feel like now you can feel a little bit more comfortable handing the keys over to Maye, especially after a 10-point performance today against the Dolphins, where realistically Maye probably could have put up more than that.
And I do want to sprinkle a grain of salt on the tackle situation because the Dolphins are so thin at edge right now.
Fair.
They had to sign Emmanuel Ogbah, who they tried to move on from earlier this offseason. No Jalen Phillips, so you got a lot of probably Mo Kamara. Chop Robinson was out there a lot. Chop Robinson's really just a one-move kind of player. And Darian Lowe tends to do much better against guys where they really only have one trick in their bag versus guys like against the Seahawks where you saw he struggled because they have guys who can throw a little bit of everything at you. So I do just want to temper expectations a little bit on the tackles, but still,
it was
like
still
you said,
so much better.
The pockets were still very good for a lot of the game, especially in that second half. So I agree. I'm at the point now where I was terrified about the offensive line not being able to protect Drake, give him time, and just give him any reason to have confidence, because we could talk about how mentally tough he is, but if the kid's getting hit all the time, doesn't feel like he has time to set his feet, goes through his reads. We've seen it from Jacoby Brissett. Like last year, Jacoby Brissett was killing it for the Commanders when he had to go in for relief. He almost brought them back in 2 games where they seemed like they were dead in the water. I think we have to put part of the responsibility on the fact that his supporting cast hasn't been great, but it's different with Drake, who at least it's fresh eyes. You get a little bit more confidence. And if he does have that offensive line that can give him some protection, that can also run block, I think that puts you in a much better spot, especially now that you got Kayshon Boudy's making plays. He's getting more into the mix. Tyquan Thornton only had 1 snap today after rumors that he could be traded. You got Kendrick Bourne coming back. Obviously, he didn't play a ton, but just it feels like there's certain reasons to have optimism in the offense. And I think now you start to seriously consider, all right, do we start ramping up Drake Maye? Because once again, Jacoby Brissett was not the problem. He didn't put the ball in harm's way, and I cannot emphasize how big that is. But also, if you want to talk about Joe Flacco, where Joe Flacco is making plays, but he's also turning the ball over, but he's also giving you like 3 big-time throws and then 2 turnover-worthy plays. So it's like, hey, at least there's fireworks. At least guys believe and they know, hey, it's going to be 50-50 on this drop back, but I have some faith that you're going to make a tough throw versus Jacoby Brissett, where every time he drops back, I'm genuinely not confident that something good's going to happen.
Because of that, right, one of the main things that we've talked about is the offensive line with Drake Maye, but to me, it wasn't because he was going to go out there and get hurt. It was because they were going to speed up his internal clock, and you're going to ruin his development, etc. We
already saw that against the Jets. Like, it's not like we're making this up. We literally saw it.
And you see Jacoby Brissett's internal clock has sped up from week 1 until now. He was making bigger and better throws. He was able to see someone downfield and put it in their breadbasket. Today, he missed Jalen Polk on the side over here. He missed somebody else across the middle. I forget who it was. So, like, he's speeding up, even though today the offensive line was good, but now he's thinking, okay, pressure's coming. I'm not going to be able to make this throw, and then he sails a guy a couple times.
And so this is where like I think the main difference between the play Maye, don't play Maye camps are this idea of irreparable damage you're going to do to his psyche because everyone's talking about Mac Jones. And again, I contend that teams don't ruin quarterbacks forever. The good ones,
Baker Mayfield,
Alex Smith, like there's a lot.
You've seen Geno Smith, even Darnold coming up. Like eventually they're going to, when they leave that situation, they're going to be okay. Like I don't know that Zach Wilson or Trey Lance or Jamarcus Russell or some of these other first round busts were under
Jamarcus Russell.
Under any circumstances are playing well, and I think that others do. So I think as a whole, the hive mind just wrapped themselves around this notion that like you will destroy him and burn an asset, and you might destroy your Drake Maye experience in New England, but that's going to happen one way or the other if you don't get your shit together. The kid's got to play at some point. That's a certainty, and so. If you're nowhere near competitive, how long are you going to wait? Like 2 years? Like it's not going to be great next year either. I'll tell you that much. Like you get to the point where you just got to kind of throw it in. I don't believe he's going to be damaged. You're right. People get sped up and then things improve around them and then they slow down. As we mentioned before, Tom Brady was sped up in 2009 because he was seeing ghosts after that hit in 2008. He had 2 years of PTSD, honestly, before he kind of started to feel and look like himself again. There's
a Belichick clip where he's like, "Hey, settle down there, buddy. Like, set your feet, make the
Step
throw."
Into the throw. Yeah, that made the rounds this week. It's really funny, but like,
who's in his hands?
Over his head. Oh, that one.
Oh, that one. But I mean, of course, everybody goes through it, and it's a really good point. Jacoby's going through it right now, but if it's settled, he would slow back down. This is just a reality you're living with right now. So the question is, Mayo, I know it wasn't asked outright, did he either fully, because it's, I get you guys, I know you guys are tired of asking it because he's been saying it, but was it presented in any, was it presented in any way in this game where it leaves the door open a crack? Because it didn't look like it from the comments I was seeing.
No, he pretty much immediately was like, I don't want to get into the comparison talk. And it's the same thing where he says Jacoby's doing what we asked of him. He's protecting the football. It's really.
But he also did mention the entire offense has to execute, which lumps Jacoby Brissett into it, where, yes, he's doing what he has to do. But is he really?
But Jacoby's not the one getting 2 flags on the same drive like 100%. Hunter Henry. He's not dropping passes like we saw from Jalen Polk and Demario Douglas. Like, I'm not saying that's the thing. There's so many things that are going wrong, and that's been the issue. Last week was way more on Jacoby. You commit 5 turnover-worthy plays. You throw a pick 6. Like, I'm sorry, dude. You are a major reason for that loss. Even here, he wasn't the reason they lost because we said all 3 phases weren't good enough, but you need a higher margin for error. That's just the reality. And it's starting to feel like you're getting to a point where if you're losing to a Dolphins team that seemed like they were on the verge of mutiny, and now you're going up against the Texans next week, you have to give people something to get excited about. And I just don't know. Like, yeah, you see Jacoby get hit and he's tough and you respect him and you appreciate him, but between the white lines on a snap-to-snap basis, like, do you really have that much confidence that he's going to drive you down the field and put you in position to score? Which, to be fair, he did. But again, it just feels like every time this offense is on the field, especially in passing situations, it feels like a lost cause. And part of that's also on the play calling, I will say. And I need to be fair there because, like we said, you're not putting Jacoby in good positions. When it's 3rd and 2, you've run the ball well the last 2 plays, and you don't even come out under center. You come out in a passing formation with Hunter Henry detached from the formation. Like, what are we doing there? I said before it happened, I will be apoplectic if they throw right now. And they did. And I think Jacoby missed an open receiver. And it's like, that's where it is, where it's like there's not one thing. It's multiple things. It feels like every play where when one person does something right, someone else does something wrong. And sometimes I just think you do need that quarterback who has the talent to be able to really put the team on his back and just carry you. And I would feel a lot better if, they're dropping passes, but at least it's like, oh, Drake Maye is showing us something. The spark is there. He's doing the best he can. And, I have a lot of respect for Jacoby, and I hate dumping on him because he is in such a difficult position. But at the end of the day, I don't know how much longer you can keep doing this. This isn't sustainable because I feel like people are going to start losing faith.
Another wrinkle I'll add to it, too, and I don't know how much this actually will end up going into the decision, but Jacoby Brissett is a captain, and he does essentially run the offense from a captain's perspective, especially with David Andrews gone. They bring in Hunter Henry as sort of that backup captain, if you will. But you lose Jawan Bentley, you lose David Andrews, you might now lose Kyle Duggar. Jabril Peppers isn't out there, and he's a captain. Are you then going to take another captain off the field in Jacoby Brissett and leave it over to Drake Maye? Like, it's going to get kind of strange where the entire leadership council on this team is either a bench quarterback or somebody on the injured reserve. Now, I don't think that's something in the back of their head, but the way that they continue to, commit penalties and things like that could kind of add another wrinkle and layer to it as well.
And they know that Drake's going to play. There's no mystery. No one thinks that Jacoby Brissett is going to be the quarterback in January. But now it's just, okay, I think we've seen, maybe we have a steady offensive line. We're starting to get some guys healthy potentially. I just think the consideration to maybe play Drake Maye within the next 2 weeks has to be on the table. I was thinking November, but after today, this was the game where I said, if they lose to the Dolphins, something has to change. Because this is one of the worst teams in football. You were favored in this game. They've been favored in the game in 2 years?
Yeah, something like that. It was the first time this year, and they only put up 10 points too. That's the thing. It's not like they lost it 35-20 or 35-30 even. They put up 10 points, and he was able to drive them down here and get them in the red area, and Jalen Polk doesn't get his feet in, but there's just not enough. There's just not enough juice on offense, and the offensive line is now sort of starting to put itself together. You're getting Kendrick Bourne back, things of that nature, and so I think it's time. I think next week is the time to do it. I think it's
and even the situational awareness at the end of the game where you throw 2 passes inbounds.
Yeah,
I understand that Jacoby wanted to get the ball out of his hands after he broke out of a couple sacks. You need to give yourself a Hail Mary opportunity. It doesn't matter if you get 30 yards if you don't have anywhere to go because you don't have enough time. Hunter Henry catches the pass with 4 seconds left. There's 0 shot that he's going to be able to do anything with that. So I need to watch it back so I can really understand. Okay, maybe there was anybody open. He didn't have a chance. But for a veteran quarterback, you need to get the ball in the end zone. And you didn't even get close.
Yeah, and it's all. I'm glad you got there because, like I said, this isn't
close. I've been close, but this isn't.
I totally get where everybody has been coming from throughout. My conclusion was always, yes, I agree. Except
But
except but I don't think it's going to break his brain, and
Right.
B, there's never going to be a great situation. Like the first bit is going to be weird and rocky and this and that. I understand the idea of hoping that they gel, or it's always we keep getting conflicting reports. Like, you know, he's not close at all. Ian Rappaport 2 weeks ago. It's like the movie trailer. Drake Maye, not even close. You know, like
Yeah, right.
with what the people are saying, and then you're getting Breer. Oh, he's starting to get closer, and that little trickle out of reports that week where people are amazed by the stuff that he's doing and the throws that he's making. Then Bedard goes out earlier this week. He's like, from what I'm hearing, it's not the OL. It's just they still don't think he's there yet. So we don't know what they're seeing behind the scenes. It's very possible they see enough from him and they're like, I really need him to clean a couple of these things up before I put him out there.
Right.
And they're waiting on that.
And that's been the thing for me is I just,
and it's
like,
possible,
obviously, because I thought that he would regress if it was a bad O-line. But it's one thing if you're starting from a place where the coaches are saying, all right, it's not going to be easy, but we feel confident enough that he can do what he needs to do to at least be functional, versus like where Albert Breer is saying he's getting better against the blitz. And then like what Bedard was saying, where maybe he's not ready. Whoever's right. The point is, I just wanted him to get enough time behind the scenes that he gave the coaching staff confidence that he could deal with whatever bad situation it was. I just didn't want to have them rush him out. And that's still, I still do feel that way. If the coaches are like, I don't feel great about it, then like, I'm sorry.
Those last couple kinks, whether it be a little bit better against the blitz or moving around in the pocket or setting his feet the right way, those are things that he can work out in game.
I know.
Well. You don't need to be picture perfect to get on the field.
The thing is, like,
if you're not doing it in practice, you cannot expect him to do with any consistency.
But the last part of it is this to me is, where are you learning more? Are you learning more watching versus playing? Like if you're in the gym and you're working the speed bag and the heavy bag and your footwork and everything is great behind the scenes and you're working out with your boxing trainer, that's great. But until you step in the ring and fight somebody, you're not going to be able, you're going to lose your first fight. Like it's going to happen. You're going to get bloodied. It's going to be weird. You know, the whole Mike Tyson, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Like I think he's got to get, I think that despite all of that, it might be better learning as behind the scenes and in the game. That's kind of the thing. It's not like it stops. It's not like he doesn't get to practice and learn behind the scenes anymore. He's going to continue to work on his craft, continue to get better, continue to work with coaches, but then also try to apply that, craft on the football field and get some game experience, which I think is invaluable at a certain point. And the longer you delay it, the less you're going to get a chance to see it, because the first X amount of starts are going to be weird. And again, we've seen it now with the other rookies. Like Caleb Williams is far from friggin' perfect, but he's now starting to mount together more consistency, and it's coming out. You think there's not a million things behind the scenes that they're like, he's got to work on a ton of shit here. Yeah,
for sure.
Daniels is a different case, but even Bo Nix and this and that, like they're kind of figuring it out as they go. It's going to be ugly to varying degrees, no matter when you do it, I think. And I've never really understood what you're waiting for at this point. And then now whether business comes into it at all, you have to start thinking that these guys are going to be like, I can't put this in front of this crowd again. I can't do it.
True. But my thing still is just the starting point. So little behind the scenes thing. Like when I first started working here, I could not record a video, literally just record myself behind the scenes. I could not get a whole video out. I'm stumbling over my words. I'm overthinking and all this stuff. If you had said, okay, now Taylor, do a live show, when I couldn't even do a behind the scenes recording of myself, I probably would look very, very bad. Versus if you were like, all right, I'll give you a week, get a little bit more comfortable, see if you can at least do it in this way where there's not the pressure of all these people watching you have to learn and fail. I think that would have helped me a lot, and it did.
Counterpoint, I'm much better live because I know I can't screw up. And even I do screw up, I still kind of get through it. And if I stutter and I go, and right now I might not even know what I'm talking about, but I'm still going to get to the point and maybe I go score a touchdown.
Much better live.
Starting point.
Right.
If you turn this off and you're like, John, just talk for a minute, I'll do 140 takes.
That's right. That's the counterpoint.
All right, so okay, now we're getting a little too much in the weeds. This is like our personal preference, but what I'm saying is just it's the starting point. That was the only thing for me. It's just, yes, it's going to be bad, but it's different if it's bad and he actually knows how to beat the blitz versus his head is spinning and he's going out there and it's like I literally can't even keep my head on straight, much less execute after the snap. That's all I'm saying. And again, I agree. I'm up there like I don't know how you keep putting Jacoby Brissett out here. We're looking at the stadium like people aren't here. There was half the people here felt like they were Dolphins fans. There's a bunch of empty seats in the nosebleeds. The red section looks very, very red because there's nobody sitting there. Like you can see every week, it feels like the fans are just losing interest. We see it, like the interactions, the engagement, like people are sick of this. And that's why I agree. I don't know that you can keep putting Jacoby Brissett out there, even if it does put Drake Maye in a tough spot.
The most telling part was that
we have a poll right now in the chat. Go ahead and vote, guys, who you think should start. I'm curious your thoughts because, I do get yelled at. I've been getting yelled at since week one. It was like, behind this line in this economy, are you crazy? I get it. I know the thoughts, but go ahead, Mike. You guys can vote in the poll, and we'll put it up.
Vote in the poll quickly. I think the telling part about the stadium and the lack of, I guess, juice here. A couple things. First of all, no traffic coming down to the stadium today. Yeah. And secondly, no chance for Drake Maye because there weren't enough people here, I don't think, to actually get a chant going and to get some juice behind it. It was like whoever was here didn't really care or was a Dolphins fan.
And like, do you remember like even last year when the team wasn't good for like a drive or at halftime, it would be boo.
Yes.
Like, you could hear it. I didn't even hear anything.
It was a couple boo birds, but besides that, it was just kind of a mellow like buzz.
Almost like an indifference where people were just like, oh my God.
Yeah, we're here, we're drunk.
It's what I expect. I'm exhausted. Yeah. It was like, hey, at least I got my booze, I got my friends.
Yeah, right.
and the worst part about it is, again, I still base quite a bit, of my opinions and just in terms of what people are thinking and feeling, just simply from talking to people, whether it's, talking to people on social media or your friends and this and that and the general buzz, the amount of people I talk to who were either legitimate fans or casual fans who tell me that they're watching Red Zone, on Sundays and like sometimes forget that the Patriots game is on or will flip to Red Zone in a commercial and not go back is really shockingly high.
There's an inside baseball on that, John. One of my best friends, one of the biggest Patriots fan I know, texted me during the game and said, "Yo, did you realize Jacoby switched from number 14 to number 7?" And I go, "That happened week 1." And he goes, "Yeah. Oh, did it really?" That goes to show how much I've actually been watching the team.
So that's kind of what you're dealing with here is the worst thing, which is a little bit of indifference. It's not a reason to play Drake Maye. I'm running out of reasons not to at this point. Even where before I could concede, I understand. I see it less and less. So we'll talk about that. And there's still some more things that we want to get into here. We do have to talk about and tell you all here, our friends over at Prize Picks. And if you are not following Mike Kadlick right now, you are doing it wrong. Okay. Because Kadlick has it locked in with his picks right now. His Prize Picks, #1 daily fantasy app. Get in on the action more or less. That's all you have to do on 2 to 6 player stats, player projections, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money. You play 5 and you get $50 instantly when you download the app and use that code CLNS. This is for new users. Go right out there. Play 5. Doesn't matter if you win or lose, you get 50 automatically when you enter that code CLNS. Boom, right into your account, and you can play with that and do whatever you want with it, and parlay that, and turn that into more scratch. So definitely check that out, and definitely follow Mike Kadlick, who is absolutely killing it with his picks. He does them heading into each weekend, and he does it prior to all of the primetime games, and he's on fire lately. Also, as we said, are we home next week, guys?
Yes, we are. Against the Houston
Get your Drake Maye tickets now on the Game Time app. Get your Drake Maye debut tickets on the Game Time app. Go there right now. Download it. Use again the code CLNS. $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Authorized Ticket Marketplace. It's terrific place to get tickets. The interface is unbelievable. Great panoramic views from your seats, all in pricing, so you know exactly what it is that you're in for. Get into your favorite events or games or concerts, what have you. A lot of great stuff that you can go check out. You download that app, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms do apply, and I'm telling you, book it. Drake Maye starting. Drake Maye, it'll be announced tomorrow that it's happening. once and for all. Our national nightmare has finally ended. I'm not reporting it. I'm Lazaring it here. Okay. This is,
get into
it.
I'm
Get
just,
into Drake Maye's debut.
I'm not
119
reporting it.
bucks
I'm
right now.
just,
Game
I'm
timeout.
just talking. I'm just feeling it here. That's what I feel is going to happen, because it feels like the stars are a little bit aligned here. And I really felt like this was a very soft landing spot for May. I'm actually a little bit surprised with Miami, and you said without their edge guys and getting a little bit of health back in the line here, at least as healthy as you're going to get. I don't know what's holding it up there. I am curious ultimately what that final decision is, and what is keeping it from happening. But didn't happen today. It feels like sometime in the next week or two it is imminent. Maybe they are waiting for the second half of the season. Part of me has always believed that the week one is the date is preordained, and I thought it was. I think a lot of fans thought week 5 made sense once you got clear of San Francisco. That this is the one that made sense. And maybe in their mind they have it set, but it's second half of the year. It's week 8 or 9, and maybe that's where it is. And really, there's no actual reason why. So there's no reason for us to continue guessing why or why not. And there's no reason to keep arguing about it. They might have made up their mind. We're not doing it. We're not doing it until the end of the year, because that's my plan. Their plan may involve, absolutely under no circumstances am I putting May in there unless there's an injury or something, catastrophic happens. If that's the case, we just have to kind of sit and do this for a little bit longer. We talked about the play calling briefly. We spent more time on the penalties as kind of things that we question here. But I know Van Pelt's been catching some strays as well, because people wondering, and I think, and again, Taylor, you obviously have a unique viewpoint on this, because you study the film, you watch it, you see things that a lot of fans at home don't necessarily see. But I do think there's probably a lot of fans and a lot of people out there who kind of feel the way I feel. Like, I know it's bad, but I can't tell you why. Like, I feel like they could be doing more with the less that they already have personnel-wise, and it feels like they're not maximizing, playing to their strengths, or doing a good job hiding their weaknesses, and or developing enough of an identity. Though I will say the outside zone stuff is starting finally to show a little bit of light, where it looked like it was doomed, and it looked stubborn up to this point. Like, what are you doing? This is just what you do here. Play to your personnel and play to your strengths, where you actually started to see it working a little bit more. So again, maybe that is part of the identity, but again, you can't really explain the 19 rushes to 35 passes or whatever the final was that in game. So strange in-game management, strange strategy overall. I'm not really sure what's going on with the utilization of particular weapons. So I'll ask you guys, like, what's going on here? And could it be better? And how much heat, I always like to slice the blame pie. Again, how much are we giving to Van Pelt here for what's going on with his management of the offense?
I think the situational play calling was not good enough. Like the third down, especially third and manageables when you're passing. Like Ramondre Stevenson is your best player, and they need to start acting like it. And I don't really understand why there's so much hesitation or really just commit to the run. Like I was saying, dust off the 2021 Buffalo game plan. Like seriously, don't keep putting Brissett in these positions to play at a style of play that this offense can't do sustainably. So I didn't like the end of the half. I didn't like some of the third down play calling. I think, honestly, I liked what Van Pelt was doing early on, but now that's lost some of its luster. I think that, I think you could argue that he could probably put some guys in easier positions to succeed. Now, I don't want to get too much into that because, I haven't seen the All-22. It's very difficult, but I kept saying this was a game where they needed to pound the rock, and they did not. And we see every week there are offensive coordinators who find creative ways to get guys like Demario Douglas and Jalen Polk involved. And we saw one target to Kendrick Bourne on a screen, and that was pretty much it.
And he got 6 yards. He had some juice in it, and then they go back to him. You don't know how healthy he is and that nature, but still not good enough.
And Antonio Gibson not really being used in the pass game, and we heard all this about, they're going to go use Pony, and he's going to be all over the formation, and we saw it in the summer, and I'm just like, where is Antonio Gibson half the time? I really don't understand. I know the fake benching, and I don't really care about it because Ramondre didn't fumble today. That was huge. I'm very happy for him. But there are times where I'm just I don't understand what we're thinking here and what we're doing. Now, I've never coached. And when it comes to play calling, that's an area where for the most part, I try to, show some humility
them,
because I really don't know. But when there's times where I'm saying, like, I understand the flow of the game, you cannot keep passing, and not even just passing, but not even giving the illusion that you might run. That's the part where I'm just like, no one's afraid of you throwing the ball, and you're not giving them any reason to. Why aren't you running the ball? Make it 4-down territory where you're like, you know what? If we get stuffed here, I trust that we're going to be able to figure it out. If you trust the pass so much, then you should run, and if you don't get it, then you pass on 4th down. Like, just enough of this weird pass-heavy game plan. And I want to go back and see if it was maybe situational or, what the reasons were behind it, because sometimes when I do look, I'm like, all right, this makes more sense. But I'm like I'm in the press box thinking, I really just don't understand what the mentality is here, especially when we've seen so many times, like, this isn't week 2 where you're thinking, all right, let me show some faith in my guys. Maybe you had a good week of practice. This is, we know that we can't throw the ball consistency, and we're putting our skill players and our offensive line in difficult positions, and our quarterback, most importantly, and you're still doing it. I don't get it.
The end of half situation management felt super desperate to me, where you asked Jacoby about it after the game, where were you trying for a double score, where you want to try and get in the end zone, go into the half, get the ball back, and put this thing away basically as soon as the clock hits the 5-minute mark of the second half, get 2 touchdowns out of it. What they did was abysmal, and I have the numbers in front of me here from
that was one of the worst ends of half I've ever seen in my life.
They got the ball back with a minute 43. They ran 3 plays, gained 8 yards, and took just 55 seconds off the clock. And then they punted.
8 yards were all on the first run, by the way.
Yep, it was a run up the middle for 8 yards, and they passed it twice, stopped the clock twice, gave Miami their 3 timeouts back, along with a 43-yard Bryce Behringer punt, his worst of the day. And then they luckily forced the Dolphins into a botched snap on a field goal attempt where they didn't get points out of it. Then the Patriots get the ball back with 22 seconds left. They run 3 plays. They gain 5 yards. They pass the ball 3 times, again, stopping the clock every single time, and give Miami the ball back again with a chance to score points. And they're super lucky that Miami didn't, because that was like a minute 43 and you run 2 drives out of it, pass the ball 5 times, stopping the clock. It's like, get to the damn half.
But we were saying that
football.
before they ran a play. We're like, please,
run the football. Just get to the halftime. And it was like, it was super desperate. And so I don't know, which is why I like your point about you don't want to harp on the play caller, because that could also be Mayo in Van Pelt's ear saying, let's pass the football, let's try and score. And then Van Pelt's almost forced into calling the pass play. So you don't know what's going on in the headset,
no doubt.
But it still felt super desperate.
And to that point, like, we've seen Bill Belichick make all these conservative decisions the past couple of years. And I don't like the Mayo Belichick thing, because obviously, like Belichick, there needed to be some level of change. I don't think it's fair to do that comparison, because no one expected Gerard Mayo to be Bill Belichick. But now I honestly understand why so many times last year Bill was like, nope, we're going into halftime. I don't care. We have no momentum. Because it's insane for this to be an offense where you really haven't even proven that you can execute in a 2-minute drill with any consistency.
A perfect example of that is if you look at the flip side. When Miami is down 10-6 and they throw a pass down and they're 4th and 1 from the Patriots 28-yard line or whatever that was. And the analytics and every instinct in every football fan's brain is saying, you go for it here. Obviously, you're down. You're down more than 3. The field goal is pointless. And everyone thinks go for it. And I'm thinking absolutely not, because what's the chance that Miami's going to string together 30 more yards and get into the end zone? I understand going from the 5 or the 4 if you get that close, because a touchdown is now more likely. But from there, if you're the Patriots or the Dolphins, you're thinking, now, and your opponent is the Patriots or the Dolphins, you're thinking 3 points is gold, because I freaking dare you to come and score 7 on me. So it makes sense why you do that, where you're almost, it sucks because it's like surrendering, total capitulation, at least from a fan perspective, but it absolutely makes sense. But beyond the clock management, I just wanted to throw out, because again, I think we're not fully, the numbers are going to look a little better at the end of the day because of stringing together that last drive where they weren't able to score. Yeah. But the reality is, how the Patriots went through 3 quarters. The Patriots had 6 first downs, and they were 1 of 9 on 3rd down, 153 total yards and 50 yards passing. Okay. So this is what it was. Brissett was 9 of 18 for 62 yards.
You're going to make Taylor sick, John, reading those stats.
Through 3 quarters. Now, again, the first possession after Gibson runs for 7 yards, then it goes sack. So it's -5. They score on the 43-yard drive off the Christian Gonzalez interception next. And then the net yards on the following drives go 0, 8, 8, 5, 50, where they kick the field goal, and 7. 78 total net yards on 6 drives. So again, it's
Can't have it.
really hard. It's really hard to take anything positive out of the snapshots. We're so desperate for a glimmer of hope or something that looks positive that we're actually probably it's a tired thing that we're doing to continue to beat on them, but I actually don't think we're beating on them enough. It's bad to a beyond a level of what we've seen, of what they've been even in the last couple of years where things haven't gone super well, and even relative to the rest of the league. And there's a lot of bad offense in the rest of the league, and this is bad even by those standards. So you're almost at the point where it's like you've got to do something completely different, and that's either commit fully to the run, figure out ways to scheme it up, and focus on whatever playmakers you think you have, and try to get it out to them. Get out more quick throws. Do whatever it is that you can do. Scheme it up a little bit better to change what it is that's happening, because if there is an offensive philosophy or there is a thing that they're trying to accomplish, they're failing spectacularly at it, to a point that I think repeating any of it is borderline fireable at this point. You really can't continue on like this. You can't just shrug your shoulders and say, oh, injuries. This is the job. This is the job in the NFL. Every team has their own. Every team has their own strengths and weaknesses, and you have to kind of play with what you have and make the most of it. I don't know that the Patriots are.
And the frustrating part is it's not like glimmers of hope. We're like, oh, maybe this little nugget. The run game is good. Yeah. No defense has been able to actually stop them with any consistency. The only reason the run game didn't do well the past 2 weeks, obviously not counting this game, was because they were getting blown out before halftime, and you had to kind of abandon the run. And then even when they did start leaning on the run, it was the only time they were able to move the ball. They happened in week 1. And then we talk about the outside zone. The only reason the outside zone even struggled in the first week was because, like Scott Peters said, they were trying to stop the outside zone. Now it's gotten better every week. I keep saying it. People act like they can't run outside zone. It has been visibly better every week. I've been saying it. I've been putting it out there. It's like the good has been, as far outweighed the bad. Now, obviously, Vidarian Lowe, it's a second home game where he's gotten called for holding on outside zone, but it's like no one is stopping your run game, or at least not stopping it enough that it justifies you not fully committing to your star players. Antonio Gibson looks great. Ramondre Stevenson looks great. When you get the ball to pop in space, and Kendrick Bourne, we know what works. We know the chain moving to the tight ends. It's not hard to figure out what this offense does well. They just keep putting themselves in these positions, 1, because of penalties, 2, because of negative plays, and then missed opportunities, where it's you have to expect the missed opportunities at this point. It's one thing when I'm sitting here after 2 games and 3 games, and I'm like, all right, it's starting to become a pattern, but let's see if they can figure it out. This is the 5th game. Now you know what your strengths are. You know what you're not good at. Lean in your strengths. I don't understand why they have it.
I have the numbers on the screen here. The numbers on the screen here, just in terms of net yards, and obviously this includes sacks in the passing game, moving you back. This isn't just what Jacoby threw for. 120 versus the Bengals in a win. Everybody knew that's not sustainable, right? Even Gerard Mayo goes after game 1. The one thing Mayo said is we did it today. We can't win this way. It's got to be better. Okay. 125 net passing yards versus the Seahawks, 61 versus the Jets, 143 versus the Niners, and 148 with the Dolphins, which a lot of it coming late. On that,
there was a point where they had 50 yards through 3 quarters, like you mentioned.
So that's where you're at here. And again, in the modern NFL, this is completely untenable. So as you said, five is enough to understand that something's got to change. And this is again where I continue to feel like I'm taking crazy pills here, which is it's
funny how
it's so here obvious. The only thing that you can do at this point to continue arguing against doing it. But what were you saying, Mike?
No, it's funny. We're telling them they gotta run the football more, and they're passing too much, and their passing yards numbers are still under 150 in 5 straight games or whatever. It's stop throwing the football, run the damn ball. But I wonder too, do you think Ramondre Stevenson's fumbling issue kept them from running the football at all? Because they put him out there. They didn't put Antonio Gibson out there, but they didn't run the football nearly as much as they should.
If that was the reason, then it was poor coaching for you to 100%. Put someone out there that you didn't trust, especially when Antonio Gibson was playing well. He had 1 carry in the first half. We were like, is he hurt or something? He's still returning kicks. So it's why isn't he getting? I know that Taylor Embry wanted to go with the hot hand. And look, Ramondre Stevenson was great out here. I don't want to do the hindsight thing. And
give him the ball more.
Right. But both of your running backs are playing well. I don't. It's one thing if you get stuffed and it's like 2nd and 12 because they made a good play against the run. It's like, yeah, I understand you gotta drop back at that point.
Game, right.
I understand if the net positive for the run game just isn't there. I get that. That wasn't the case today. It felt like 80% of the time when they were running, they were getting chunks of yards. It was the best I think they've been this season. So it's so mind-blowing and frustrating that all you have to do is lean on this very clear strength that you have. And then when Drake Maye gets in there, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to try to protect him. They need to run the ball. They need to get the play action going, the quick passes, and all these things. And obviously, Drake gives you more of a ceiling. Maybe you're a little more comfortable passing, but he's a rookie. You don't want him to have to shoulder the load because C.J. Stroud, as much as we talk about him and his great campaign, a lot of the reason for that was because he was put under center. Play action. They're not asking him to be Mr. Drop Back 40 times a game.
Is it a game plan issue then? Because they come into this game, Miami, I mean a game plan issue coming into the game, because you come into the game, Miami has a good run defense. So you figure we're going to throw 66% of the time.
Statistically, they did, but I even broke down. They were struggling really badly against duo. Okay. There were runs where when you outside zone in power where they would press to one side and then cut back because the Dolphins would overcommit. It's like if you actually look at the tape, there were plenty of reasons to think they could have run. And I talked to Nick Leverett. He said part of the plan was that they thought they could run on this team, and they did. So is it the game plan? Is it the play calling? What part didn't mesh? Because it just did not make any sense to me.
No, it didn't make sense. That's what I got. I was going to go with the game plan angle, but the fact that you said that Leverett said that they could run the football, it doesn't really do it for me, because you go into it and you think, oh, we're not going to run the football as much, so you decide to pass, and you're going to pass say 66% of the time. You see that you're getting effective runs on the board, but you don't change your game plan because you think, we might not be able to do this. This was the script. Let's stick to it. Let's not adjust, and you get to where you are today.
I'm so cold.
John, you're muted.
The mediocrity is freezing me to death.
I know it's exactly that. So again, we'll tie things up a little bit here because these guys have a little more work to do here. We'll see where they're going towards next week here, and the story continues on. To May or not to May, and that's really the only thing that I see changing here. Again, if you're going to talk about I hate let's just throw some positives in there. I do think Demario Douglas starting to show as a playmaker is certainly one of the positives that you can talk about in this game. I do think in general, if an offensive line is going to be maligned for its inability to protect a quarterback, we have to give it some credit for being able to create some openings for the backs. And I know Ramondre has a lot of his numbers coming after contact as well, but it's a passable, competent, bordering on decent running game right now. So I'm not ready to completely destroy the offensive line because they have a hand in that as well. And I think a third one you have to talk about, and Taylor, I know you talked about this kind of Christian Gonzalez's minor ups and downs throughout the year. But he was
he's been lights out. I know against the Jets and DK, there were a couple moments where he's facing great receivers, where he gets tripped up, but he was great today. The play that he undercut where he lost initially, and then he even noted that the reason he undercut was because he knew he was in the red zone. He's like, Tyreek's going to run out of space. So that's why he undercut the ball, didn't look it in. That was one thing that he said he could have done better. But Christian Gonzalez has been fantastic.
Brilliant game.
Also, credit to the safeties. I do want to say also, I think Del Pettis may have overrun one play that was an explosive gain for the Dolphins.
To be without your two safeties,
those guys were way
impressive.
better than I expected. And Marte Mapu playing, I think, almost every snap, getting people a lot. It was he looked
with the green dot.
He looked like a completely different player. Where last year, obviously, he was still trying to get everything under his belt. Remember what I was saying last year? This is a talented guy. Give him some time to learn. It was his first year. People are going to have a hard time, especially when he's thrown into the fire. I thought he looked really great. Now, the tape will tell, but I love the leadership he showed. That was really, really cool to see. I'm trying to think anybody else. And then Kendrick Bourne obviously just had the one catch. But, there's definitely bright spots. There's things to get excited about, and I'll make sure to highlight those so people have some reason to, tune in and even care about this team anymore. But it's and Jacoby said, they can see it. They see the glimpses of potential and the things that they can do better. It's just they keep shooting themselves in the foot. It's one step forward, 20 steps back. And that's just what it is with this team. And that's what we have to expect until they show us different.
I'll just quickly say on Christian Gonzalez, he's not just a good player for the he's obviously the Patriots player, right? But he's not just a good Patriot. He is a great, like you mentioned, John, eye-popping, all-pro caliber NFL player. He is shutting down player after player, week after week, and it's not just scrub receivers because of injury, right? You talk about Hill and Waddle today, as you can see on screen. DK Metcalf, the A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith game last year, Garrett Wilson a few times. Like, he is balling out. He is the reason. I don't want to say he's the reason they're in these games because there's really no evidence of that being the reason that they're in the game, but he's the reason that the defense can sustain things on the back end because he is just so dominant. He can take out one player, and kudos to him. That play, that interception, he basically ran the route for Tyreek Hill, undercut it.
It was one play after he undercut another route. That's why I was like, you're going to throw at him twice?
Yeah, I mean,
twice?
Yeah, he legit. So kudos to him because he is truly like a one-of-one cornerback, and he's going to be for a long time.
Got a shout out from Gilly.
Got a shout out from Gilmore. We are never doing the is Christian Gonzalez not that good of a player type thing this summer.
That's why I wasn't doing that.
Nonsense.
I wasn't
that
doing
was
that.
Crazy. We didn't do it on Pat's Daily. We didn't do it together, but there were some people that thought so. It was crazy. He's a gamer. He's a baller. So shout out to Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah.
By far.
Also, Brendan Schooler, two guys who had similar plays to what they actually had last year when Miami came to Foxborough, where Gonzo once again has the interception. Brendan Schooler blocks a punt this time, and then he blocked a field goal last time Miami was here. I thought that was kind of funny too.
Good stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. And to close the loop on the Gonzo thing, I always talk about like how many plus players do the Patriots have, and I've argued with fans on this before, looking up and down the roster, and everyone's trying desperately to kind of, Ramondre, no.
Bryce
like,
Behringer.
When you have a truly special player, you have a special player, and Gonzalez absolutely is one. Barmore was trending in that direction. You need more of those guys. It's the Jimmys and Joes. You need those guys on the field making the plays. Ultimately, we spend a lot of time talking about the scheme and the coaches and put them in a position to win, but it's the players who are going to put you over the top. And again, I think this brings you back to the Drake Maye conversation. Is you think you have a guy who has a special skill set that can elevate those around him and turn a bad situation into something better. I think people want to see if it happens, and I think people will be okay if it doesn't. But the point is, do we have something here? And I do think patience is starting to affect people's judgment, probably has from the get-go in this situation. But as we said, there are more and more reasons for this to happen now than there were even a week ago or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So we'll see where it goes. It's obviously the number one story in and around the team. I am also curious whether or not, I'm not going to talk about mutiny as if it were a real story, but you do wonder how much the losing takes a toll, and if the team's going to be able to kind of hold the line and keep it together. They probably do need a solid performance somewhere, or a W coming up in one of these next couple of games to because they're taking on a lot of water right now. So we'll see. It's going to be a tough one next week against Houston here, who beat the Bills this week. Boy, you don't want to be on Bills Twitter after that one. That was something, but they're a good team. Did
evil Josh Allen come to play?
The final numbers on our poll, is that right, Amit? 87?
We can't 87. See from here. What's do you know the final numbers on our poll?
Was it 87-13?
87-13, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Where have you guys been?
It's May time.
Where have you been?
87.
Okay. Confirmed. That might be the
I'm putting on multiple jackets.
I'm going to have my sweatshirt on. Oh, and yours.
So we're going to wrap it up. We do thank you guys for hanging out. Again, Mike Kadlick, check out clnsmedia.com for a write-up on the Patriots game. Taylor Kyle's going to dive into some film. He's going to have some reaction there too. And there's more stuff coming up on our YouTube channel, which if you haven't already, you should subscribe. Please like this video. Please share. Please leave comments. I think that's great. We love interacting with you live. But anything that you do here, give us a follow. Turn on your notifications. You'll be notified every time we go live. These guys are going live daily on a show we like to call Patriots Daily. And so you will catch them tomorrow, breaking it down with a little bit of a post-mortem on this game, which again, the Patriots lost a game they were favored in. Which they wouldn't have been if Tua wasn't hurt. There's not going to be a lot of these, folks, and this was one. Losing 15-10. They had a shot to win it, did not end up winning it there. A touchdown overturned late, and that is that. So Patriots go down 15-10. This has been the Patriots post-game show. I'm John Zannis. Thanks to Mike Kadlick, Taylor Kyles, Jackson Tolliver, producing behind the scenes. Amit, super producer, down there at Gillette Stadium, doing it all. Probably he's got 4 laptops fired up right now and operating 6 cameras. You know those guys who play instruments where they're like the drum and the accordion and all of those things. Like that's how Amit is with like technical gear.
The one-man band.
Like, cell phone here and a full steady cam here while he's
harmonica
hanging
in.
Yeah. While editing with his toes, like that's what he does. So that's what we got. So thank you to everybody who watched. Thank you guys in the chat for hanging out with us. We will see you here at CLNS Media tomorrow with Patriots Daily and a host of other podcasts. But we'll be back for our post-game show after next week's game as well. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.